Welcome back to the Racial Draft Podcast, where we change the complexion of the comic book universe one draft pick at a time. I am your host, Michael Ford, back for back-to-back recording. Yes, I don't know if you all notice, but you all have multiple podcasts in your podcast feed because we've got some rounds to catch up on. We had our first episode in the new year of 2025, where we recapped round five, and we're about to embark on our journey of recapping round six of the season eight racial draft. And if this is your first episode, go back and listen to some of the older ones. But, if not, if you want to start in the middle, what we do here in the racial draft is that we take these characters that have been long standing. Most of them have been long standing, but some of them, are fairly new. And yet, what we're doing is we're attempting to diversify this comic book universe, these comic book universes of ours, by having the different racial and ethnic delegations stake their claims to these characters. And essentially, we explore whether those characters are improved or diminished by the changes to those characters. Often it's beneficial, often doesn't make a difference, and every now and then it actually does harm the character to have the racial change. We haven't had guests recently, but back when we have guests, we like to have a spirited discussion where we bring our different perspectives to the discussion. And this will probably be a solo episode, and hopefully you guys won't get tired of my perspective. As always, you can offer your feedback on a variety of platforms, most of them social media platforms, although you can email us at racialdraftpodcast@gmail.com. You can also check us out at racialdraft.com, where you can see all the picks in history, but more specifically in the current season. And under each pick, there's a poll where you can make your approval or disapproval known to the universe, to the known universe, as to whether you think that this draft pick, this reimagined version of this character, or often imagined just the way that they are in the comics, just your perspective as to whether you like how this character's been interpreted by the various delegations. And you can also cast votes on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads, and not yet on Blue Sky because I don't think they have polls there yet. However, you can also find the racial draft in those places, as well as YouTube. If you're looking at my face, I don't know why you want to do that, but if you are, you're doing it on YouTube, and like and subscribe for my benefit, for my ego. And for now, we also have content on TikTok. So if you're checking us out on TikTok, enjoy for now. But anyway, let's dive right into round six of the racial draft. Don't know if there were any themes. Maybe we'll loop back around and talk about whether there are any common three threads that bind these picks in round six. Starting off is the Polynesian delegation. Polynesian delegation. So shout out to them. Their first pick was to acquire Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock's a character that, one thing that he's known for, despite movie interpretations to the contrary, is being kind of devout Catholic. Obviously, he's been traditionally depicted as having blonde hair, but of course, hair dye exists. Other than that, he's a bigger dude. He's a reporter that's been known for getting his hands dirty and taking some chances. All of that doesn't necessarily have to be something that is specifically that's specific to a white character. So for me in particular, I don't think that there's anything, offensive or off-putting about Eddie Brock as a non-white person. And in fact, the people agree. 100% approval rating for Polynesian Eddie Brock. That is 50% strongly approved and 50% somewhat approved. As far as there was a fan cast that was submitted that also got a 100% approval rating. Manu Bennett, who you might know from one of the Spartacuses, or the Spartaci. Yeah, the Spartaci. Or also from one of the many seasons of Arrow, where he played Slade Wilson. So he was chosen to depict Polynesian Eddie Brock. And I think, again, that is a casting that I can certainly get behind. So for me, I approve. And the people approved in kind, 50% strongly approve, 50% somewhat approve of Polynesian. Anyway, moving on from that pick to a pick that perhaps a little bit more controversial, not on my end. But the Latin delegation selected Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. One thing I would say about this character that is, again, also been traditionally depicted as white is that she's usually just known for being sexy, if we're being honest. And, as we all know, there's no reason that that sexy women have to only fall into the realm of white representation. I think that every race can bring their own brand of sexy, and I think that this is an example of where Felicia Hardy could easily be depicted by a Latina. And again, this is another situation where the people agree with us or agree with me in 100% approval rating for Latina Black Cat, with 40% somewhat approved, sorry, 40% strongly approving and 60% somewhat approving of Felicia Hardy, the Latina. There was also a fan cast. This actress I only know from the 100, Lindsay Morgan, and multiple pictures were submitted to help build the case for her as the Latina Black Cat. Sadly, the people were not as enthused as I think they should be, with only 75% approval rating, with 50% strongly approve, 25% somewhat approve, and 25% somewhat disapproving of Latina Black Cat. And also, if you check us out on social media on the various places, you'll see that there was some original fan art from our guy Carlos, who's been on the podcast, depicting Felicia Hardy through the lens of Lindsay Morgan's fan casting. So if you like seeing original art, go ahead and check out all the places: Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, and even Racewheel Draft. Also, for some reason, I always fall short. You can also see our pics on Facebook if you're one of those Facebook people. Moving on from Felicia Hardy to the world of Gotham, and that brings us to the Jewish delegation, who has selected another one of the Robins, the third Robin, some might say the best Robin, Timothy Drake. And, I don't think there's a lot to say in that regard because, I think that a lot of the studious, not introspective, sorry, cerebral stereotypes that Jewish actors and Jewish characters, are often associated with fit quite nicely with Tim Drake and how that character is interpreted. So, I think that visually, of course, there's, not a lot to distinguish him in the sense of him not resembling how we traditionally imagine Tim Drake to look in both in comics and in animation. There was also a fan cast submitted that I'll go ahead and offer the opinions of the people on that. But, for me, I totally understand why the people came back at 100% approval rating for Jewish Tim Drake. 33% strongly approve and 66.6% somewhat approve. Now, as far as the fan cast, you might know this actor Jack Dylan Grazer from the Shazam movies where he played, what was his name? Freddie. Yes, Freddie Freeman. He played Freddie Freeman in the Shazam movies. Definitely not a character with a lot of physicality, so that's been a change. I think he's gotten a little bit older. He probably stand to pick up a little bit of muscle, but I think he's a pretty good actor. I actually think he's one of the stronger actors, one of the strongest actors in the ensemble, particularly in the child side of the ensemble. So, it's my vote of approval, but the people only gave him 66.7% approval, with 50% strongly approving, 16.7 somewhat approving, yes, and 16.7 somewhat disapproving, and 16.7 strongly disapproving of guy, Jack Dylan Grazer as Tim Drake. And Jewish Robin, overall, though, most people approve. To one character that I think should get 100% approval, and I'll be very upset if this character is not, is Kamala Khan from the South Asian delegation, one of the defensive picks, one of the top defensive picks, I would say, for the South Asian delegation. Probably the most well-known South Asian character in the comics. And, I'm not surprised that no other delegation tried to scoop her up, but I do think that she probably could have stood to be acquired a little bit earlier than the 6th round. But whatever. They got their character. And there's not really a lot to say. I mean, like I said, the fact that this character only got 92.9% approval rating, with 92.9, of course, all strongly approving, means that 7.1% of y'all are racist. As far as the fan cast, Iman Vellani, who has played her with aplomb in live action. I don't think she's voiced her yet as a voice actress, but maybe we'll get that soon. I would have expected it in What If, but we haven't seen Ms. Marvel in What If. But 100% approval rating for Iman Vellani, and I think that's correct. Top marks for the South Asian delegation and acquiring Ms. Marvel. Once again, I want to remind you that if you have your own opinions about these characters and whether you approve of them, make your way to racialdraft.com, where these polls stay open for the entire season. So you have the whole season to make up your mind, decide whether you like or you don't like. And they've got all season to try to convince you. So that's the synergy. Speaking of some kind of synergy, we want to talk about a character that has been really coming into her own. We've seen her in live action in the ill-fated New Mutants movie, but we're seeing her really show and prove in the Marvel Rivals video game, and that's Ileana Rasputin, aka Magic, aka the character that I think, despite being a white character, is the most like anime that we've got in the X-Men universe. So yeah, the white delegation drafted her to stay white. Can't be mad at that. Um, but seems like someone was, because they only got 75% approval rating for Magic remaining white. 50% strongly approving, 25% somewhat approving, and 25% reverse racist. As far as their fan casting, they stuck with Anya Taylor-Joy, who's a phenomenal actress. And I would assume that the thought process is that she could do a much better job under much better circumstances. And the people seem to agree. 100% approval rating for Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic. Moving on from Magic to science, so to speak, and that's the Southeast Asian delegation, where they selected a character that I suppose could be of any ethnicity. Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. Now, what I will say about Norman Osborn is that his classic waves I have a preference for him being part of a delegation that can canonically grow waves. So, their fan cast is going to have to go to work with the wave cap, to get those waves to truly embody what it means to be Norman Osborn. Be that as it may, we're going to see a little bit more of Norman Osborn, albeit African American, in this week's debut of for Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the animated series. It's going to pop up on your Disney Plus. That's neither here nor there, because we're talking about the East Asian Norman Osborn. And I think this is a character that, being a technology mogul and a super genius, clearly doesn't have to be within the realm of white people. With waves, got some thoughts. Anyhow, for the fan cast, the Southeast Asian delegation selected Ryan T, who's appeared in a number of things, former model, also actor, very good action chops, and a lot of physical presence. So, I mean, I think that, waves aside, I do think that he has the acting chops to embody Norman Osborn, and it seems that people agree. 100% approval rating, with 75% strongly approving and 25% somewhat approving of Brian T as East Asian Norman Osborn. Moving on from Norman Osborn to a character, again, we went from Magic to science, and now we're back to Magic, because we're talking about the multiracial delegation and Raven, who you probably know if you're fans of Teen Titans, either in live action or animation. Rachel Roth, as are sometimes known, would you call it a secret identity? Civilian identity, we'll say. But canonically, what she's known for is being half human and half demon. So that's already, in a way, multiracial. Obviously, we're not going to say that any ethnicity stands in for the demon side. We'll let certain members of the Nation of Islam do their part there. However, I think that what has traditionally been a part of Raven's both early imaginings and later imaginings is some kind of Orientalism, whether it's open homages to Indian um, iconography and visual reference, or just, symbols and depictions artistically that seem to imbue her with traits, physical traits that make you think that she's got a little something more than just being white. So for that reason, I think that she's well suited to be of multiracial descent or multiracial ethnicity. To that end, there was a fan cast, Geraldine Viswanathan, who I believe we're going to see her in the Thunderbolts movie. Let me make sure. I have not sorry guys, Googling is hard. Yes, she's definitely going to be in the Thunderbolts movie. I did not mess that up. But you might also know her from Bad Education, the movie. And also, yeah, Bad Education is probably a movie you would know her from. She's been in some other things, but Geraldine Viswanathan, who is mixed European and South Asian ethnicity, ancestry, however you want to slice it. Now, as far as the pick, the multiracial Raven, there was 100% approval rating with 75% strongly approving and 25% somewhat approving. As far as the fan cast, only 80% approval rating, which was low for my part. 60% strongly approving and 20% somewhat approving of this actress in this role. Like I said, I like I like Raven. I think that it's doing the character of Raven a disservice if you only imagine her as not being a person of color, as being either a white woman, or young woman, given the fact that she's often or sometimes been depicted as a teen. But regardless, I think that this is a character that's perfectly suited for multiracial ethnicity, and I think that they would do well if they did bring her to live action again to cast her of multiracial ethnicity. Moving on from Raven to the Swana Mena delegation. This is a character in Jessica Drew, who I would say there's not a lot in her character that makes her have to be white. I mean, obviously, a big part of her story is that, well, not a big part of her story, but part of her story is that she was born in the UK. But as we know, not everyone in the UK is of pure British English origin. There are, in fact, many people from that part of the world, from Southwest Asia and North Africa, who live in England. One of them, well, we'll get there. There's a Persian community, Lebanese community. There are a number of, we use the term Middle Eastern now, communities, Arab communities in the UK. And I think that it's perfectly acceptable for Jessica Drew to be a woman of that background. I think that many cultures have understandings of spiders that have a different kind of cultural resonance, and I believe that Lebanese culture is no exception. So I think that I think it works for me personally. Maybe not such a thing that just hits me like a home run, but it definitely doesn't offend my sensibilities. The people, they're on my side there because they're 100% approving of Lebanese Jessica Drew. I say Lebanese Jessica Drew because the fan cast that was selected here is Razan Jamal, who you might know from the Sandman television show that aired a couple years ago on Netflix. The approval rating there is 83.3%, with 66.7 strongly approving and 16.6 somewhat approving, with 16.7 somewhat disapproving. So again, not necessarily big slam dunk. Wow, I can totally see it, but definitely not in the realm of something that I can't see whatsoever. Moving on is another character that you know, perhaps there's some controversy there, but let's see if we can't together let the delegation cook, and that's the Native American delegation who selected Donna Troy. Now, Donna Troy is a character that has had a very convoluted origin in the world of DC Comics. I don't want to get into all of the nuances of the origin. Some of it involves cloning. Some of it involves, taking a child and imbuing her with powers of an Amazon. But either way, I think that there's a lot in Donna Troy's background for a character that lean towards her being seen as more of a woman of color. And I think that the magical shenanigans that go into the creation of the Amazons, and specifically with respect to Donna Troy, her being raised in an adoptive situation, adoption being a big part of the history of many Native American communities and people. I think that Donna Troy, being an orphaned Native American girl who through some kind of nefarious means was turned into an Amazon for negative purposes, but was able to turn that into a positive thing. Opens her story. Makes her a stronger character, I think, and gives her the opportunity to bring that element, bring that cultural element to her characters depicted, and of course increase the number of actors who could play her. And I mention that because the Native American delegation did provide a fan cast. You might know her from Legion. You might also know her from Prey, and that would be Amber Midthunder, who was an amazing actress and also an amazing action actress. I think she could do wonders in the role, and the people seem to agree, both with the pick at 100% approval rating and with fan cast also at 100% approval rating. So that's 75% strongly approving and 25% somewhat approving. 85.7 strongly approving and 14.3 somewhat approving of the fan cast. So home run pick for the Native American delegation. And that brings us to the last pick, the final pick number 10 of the round. This one, first glance might be a little tricky, but let's take it through together. This is the Black delegation who has drafted Jen Walters, aka She-Hulk. Now I know I've said in the past that one of the cool things in my mind about She-Hulk is that there are a lot of layers as far of what it means to be feminine and what the She-Hulk persona represents for Jennifer Walters. I do think that there's a sense that for Jen Walters, kind of mousy, less than assertive, traditionally white woman, being able to become literally a larger, more bombastic, more vivacious woman who is both physically intimidating, but also more physically attractive and typically more sexually liberated, definitely gives vibes of, how many white women relate to women of color, if we're being honest. I think that I wouldn't say, obviously, Jen Walters is not often, the human form of Jen Walters is typically continues to be depicted in that same kind of, very feminine, weak-ish manner, whereas there are a number of interpretations of She-Hulk, the physical Hulk, that have veered into where people might be likely to think that under the green, she has the dimensions that a person of a non-white background would have. Not to say that, obviously, there are white women who have more voluptuous and have more curves. Curves are typically associated with women of color. Now, I think that when you introduce the element of colorism into the equation, specifically for the Black delegation, I think that you still allow Jennifer Walters to have that aspect of where society views her as a light-skinned Black woman as a lot less threatening, and its social expectations to be a lot more demure and a lot more submissive. Given that she's a lawyer, those expectations might not necessarily work to her benefit in her human form. But once she assumes the more physically imposing form of She-Hulk, once she is imbued with these expectations of power and dominance that traditionally women don't get, the benefit of the doubt in that regard. I think that this is can become maybe not an allegory for colorism, but the addition of colorism into the narrative, can Jen Walter's story, which is a story that I already think is fairly deep. So for that reason, I think that there's a lot of room for improving of this pick. Your mileage may vary, and I'd love to hear, some of the, Randy in particular, who who made the pick, but any Black people, who may see the vision and either agree or disagree with my viewpoint of what could be brought to the table with a Black Jen Walters, a light skinned Black Jen Walters. And I say a light skinned Black Jen Walters because it was a fan cast, and that fan cast was Ruth Negga, who you might know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you might also know from Preacher, and you might also know from what's the other thing that she was in? Oh, Prophecy, which were, of course, colorism played a major role in the storytelling in that project. Um, I think that she could do a phenomenal job. She's already a well-rounded actress, but she could do a phenomenal job of um, embodying that struggle of what society expects of you as a light-skinned woman, with then having the freedom, but the downsides as well, of being now viewed as more, for lack of a better term, colorful, and a wilder figure that comes from embodying the dimensions of a She-Hulk. So again, the votes are closed on Twitter and on the other social media platforms, but the votes are still open on racialdraft.com. So if however you feel about that, however you feel we want to talk a little more about it, we're down for it. But, cast your vote, racialdraft.com. Go to all the places. Like I said, that was the last pick of the draft. I don't know if there were any overarching themes that brought this round together. I guess we could say that there were I guess we could say that it was skewed more to female characters this round. More than half the characters were women. Other than that, there aren't, I think that um, maybe a little bit more Marvel, a little bit more Marvel on this side, but no overarching themes in round 6. So I'll have to save that for, putting some themes together for the next rounds. But hopefully this was a fun ride for you, listening to me pontificate for a little bit. Hopefully you like these picks. Head on down to racialdraft.com, cast your votes, go to all the places, follow us on all the places, subscribe, like, share, tell your friends about us. If you're on Spotify, go ahead and like us on Spotify. If you're on the different other platforms, iTunes, give us 5 stars. If you give us 4 stars, well, that means you don't like us as much. But anyway, you can find us same old place, same old different times, but we'll be here. We'll be here next week to break down more picks from the racial draft. Till next time, all things are possible.